there's so much noise out there. Take a step back and really trust your gut, trust your, the way you see it and your logic, and that will get you through.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we're here again with you on Framily Month. I like Framily Month. I want to get our review because Sophie has something that she really, really wants to talk to you all about, and I'm excited about it. So I'm going to keep this short and sweet. This one's from Taylor Owl. The title is Amazing, 5 stars, and the review is love. So thank you so much for that, Taylor. Thank you for giving me a really, really quick review so Sophie can get to her quote and we can get this episode going.
Well, I was going to record that on Instagram, but it's kind of anticlimactic. So I'm going to not post that.
She said we're amazing and that she loves us.
Okay, great. Short
and sweet. I will
take
that,
Short
if any of you want to see me in the street and just yell out amazing and love at me whenever you feel like it, I will take it.
Great. Awesome. On that note, take out your phone when you have a minute and leave us a review. It really means a lot to us. Head over to wherever you listen to this podcast and just give us a quick review. Whatever you're feeling, 4 stars, 5 stars, tell us a little something. What is it that we add of value to your life? Why do you keep coming back and listening? We would love to hear, and then we will pick at random one of your reviews to read on air. So I wanted to read a quote of the week.
The good old quote of the week.
And I don't actually know where it came from. It's just in my favorite quotes section. And I felt like it related to the talk that we have later with Ashley that you'll listen to. It says, the universe. The universe is not punishing you. It's not blessing you. It's not controlling you. The universe responds to the vibration you are creating. Think happy and happiness will come to you. What we put out into the universe, we will get back like an echo.
I love it. It's a very quantum physics oriented quote. The vibrations you're putting out.
Yeah. And I find this to be that it relates to our talk with the owner of Lovebug, because we talk a lot about the relation to your health and your own little universe, your body, relating to the people that you spend time with, the thoughts that you think, the food that you put into your body, the way that your gut is created, the healthiness or unhealthiness of your gut health. And same thing goes in the macro of your entire universe. Like what response you have in the world when you walk out of your home in the day, like what you see, what you experience, what happens, it's all because of you. It's all your perspective. It's all the energy you put out there and then what you get back. And same thing goes for this conversation that we had with Ashley. It's so true. Your microbiome is a direct correlation. Your immune system is a direct correlation to what you're putting in, what you're feeding your body with emotionally, spiritually, energetically, physically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts at birth. I mean, this is but this is one of the big things I struggle with because for a big chunk of my life, the message inside was not a great one. Mm-hmm. And so it was not probably a big wonder why my life wasn't going in the direction that I wanted it to.
Well, yeah, the relationships in your life weren't healthy. You weren't eating well. Your thoughts weren't great. Your actions weren't great. You were putting drugs into your body. Like you were trying to mask so much.
Drugs even came later. Even before drugs, I was just so stuck in negative thoughts all the time that the drugs helped. Like they came in and they made me feel quote unquote better, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an easy one to say out loud. The thoughts that you have create the perspective, and it's we've had Bruce Lipton on the podcast. We talk about this all the time. We've had so many people who are really good examples of this, and it's kind of an ongoing process to keep not just focusing on the positive, because that's Pollyannic, that's like an oversimplification, but rather to start actually seeing yourself as being of value so that the world around you sees you of being of value.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does sound so simple. And it is. Like, it actually is really simple. Like, the perspective, the thoughts, the feelings, like it all kind of loops in. We were saying it's like a positive feedback loop. You start to kind of crowd out the not positive examples in your life, the people that don't make you proud, the people that you don't think about, and then you get warm, fuzzy feelings. Like, I still have warm, fuzzy feelings from the other night with two of our friends that came over. Like, my friends that make me laugh and love me for exactly who I am with no apologies. I don't have to put on an act. I don't have to create a mask. I don't have to put on makeup and look cute or have a cool, like, nothing. I can just be me, the full version of me, and my friends love me. And if there's any inclination or any feeling of like a person in my life that makes me feel differently, my response to them, I need to pay attention to that. It's just like intuition. You have to pay attention to that gut, that feeling in your body that's trying to communicate with you that something isn't aligned.
Yeah.
Whether it be a job, an experience, a trip, there are lessons to learn. That's always true. So once you gather the lesson, then what? What are you left with?
Yeah, and I think just like with how your gut feels or how your stomach feels when you get used to just eating food that is kind of crappy, and you just get used to the stomach aches, and
Someone just yesterday said to me when I was did a post on Instagram about intuitive eating, and the first photo was of salads and the second photo was of French fries, and I was talking about intuitive eating and how sometimes it's the French fries and sometimes it's the salad. It depends on what you're really feeling and connecting to that. And someone said, but what do you do with the stomach aches that come with it? And I said, I don't get stomach aches anymore because I'm not thinking shameful, guilty feelings like, oh, I'm such a fat fuck to be eating these fries. Like, oh, now I have to work out for 2 hours tomorrow. There's none of that because I've learned over time, like there used to be a constant narrative in my head when I was in college, like how little can I eat and how much can I work out and get away with in a given day and not like collapse. That was like essentially the life that I lived. It took a lot of unlearning, but now it's like when she asked that, I was like, whoa. It's
like when people that I work with sometimes have asked me, well, how do you know what is going to cause the least suffering? Like when you have to make choices in life, and I go, that's not how I think about my life anymore.
No, what's going to bring the most joy? I don't try to minimize
the suffering. I try to maximize the joy.
Absolutely.
I don't want to focus on the suffering. I don't want to have a running meter in my head of how little or how much I'm struggling on any given day. By the way, again, for me, that peaks anyway. Like that just kind of peaks its ugly little head, whether I want to focus on it or not. So for me, it's really all about the gratitude and focusing on where are things going positively. And the same thing with food, the same thing with eating. I never thought about it when I was younger, but I was eating a lot of crap. Like I come from a straight up, like Chef Boyardee ravioli was a staple.
When you moved to the States.
When I moved to the States. I guess when I lived in Israel, we definitely ate more fresh foods. And even when I ate like not fresh made foods in the moment, it was still in those little cafes and stuff like that now from our neighborhood. And so they still made it, right? Like there was less processing for sure, especially 15 years ago than there is now.
Yeah. No, our society is, the last 50 years have been nothing but TV tray meals and microwave culture, like that's what we've been for 50 years. And now it's time to unlearn all of that.
Well, and that's the thing that makes it hard, right? Is when the environment around you keeps sending the messages. I mean, you just talked about the beliefs and the way you look at yourself. We also get messages from everybody surrounding us. That's why, we talked about it in the interview with Ashley, like the people you surround yourself are a representation and an influence over how you see yourself. And so the same thing works with the food component. If everybody around you is constantly eating things out of cans and microwave meals, you think that's normal and you do it and you get used to, and your body gets used to whatever the kind of downstream consequences of that.
Yeah. So we interviewed Ashley. She owns a amazing probiotic company called Lovebug.
Yeah.
And I actually love it so much that I sell it on my own website on thephilosophy.com. So you can purchase Lovebug Probiotics on my website, thephilosophy.com, or when you buy a 14-day cleanse program, it comes with a full bottle of the probiotics from Lovebug that you can then integrate into your daily life after. So it's one of those things that you can hold on to and integrate into your lifestyle.
Yeah, and what I love about it is when people get it in your stuff is they're getting the good food to add the probiotics to.
Right.
Because sure, you can add probiotics to shitty food.
It'll help you digest better. Yeah.
Or you can add it to good food and it'll help your microbiome grow even faster.
And make your whole inner universe just run. The thing is, when you do a cleanse, like our 14-day cleanse, it completely resets your entire life if you let it. If you're open to the change and the transition, 14 days, 2 full weeks of eating beautiful foods, of saying kind thoughts to yourself, of getting out in nature, of moving from a place of love and intention, it can completely reset your life. And bringing in little tiny things like up-leveling your probiotics and up-leveling your smoothies and just kind of creating these new habits. The 2-week program is just beyond in terms of resetting. And what we love so much about the probiotics from Lovebug is, first of all, we use it with our kids.
Yeah, we have those little packets that we put in in their milk.
We have little packets that you can add, like to older kids. You could put it in like a yogurt or really anything. Oatmeal, you can add it to. It doesn't have any flavor.
Does it have a flavor?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever tasted.
So we've been giving it to baby Noah since she was like 6 months old. The minute we started introducing food, so she was breastfed exclusively, and then when we started to give her bottles and we started to introduce food, is when I started to introduce these Lovebug probiotics.
Yeah, and the thing is that when we transitioned her from all breast milk to a bottle, especially if we introduce milk, like cow's milk, etc. I mean, we noticed it. Like she didn't take it as well, and then like I love it. One of their slogans is "We are number one at number two," and that's how we could tell, right? Like her waste, her poops were not as clean. Like she would have diarrhea, and
she had like a little yeast infection, or not yeast infection, but like a little
like bacterial.
Yeah, like her body immediately showed us when she didn't have a healthy gut.
Yeah, and then when we add this stuff in, it's just.
And you can feel it. It just changes everything. When your gut is healthy, you can feel that in every part of your life. And it is the foundation for everything else. Your gut health is so vital. You've heard us talk about this before. But having a good high quality probiotic is really important. I really like that with Lovebug, you don't have to refrigerate it, but that it's super high quality. And it's a little tablet. It's not a capsule. And I really like that you don't have to refrigerate it. It's non-GMO. It's really clean. It's packed in a recyclable bottle. And there's no additives and no crap in there, which is really important. And I think it's just so important to know where you can buy a vitamin, you can buy a probiotic, but really doing your research and finding the right one is vital. Yeah,
totally. And so obviously we're big supporters. You sell it. We even have a code for you guys, Ignited25, if you guys want to order it on their website. You know, Ashley's a mom. You're going to hear her story here in a minute. Like she created this out of her own need. And so especially if you're moms with first babies and you're kind of really still struggling trying to figure out what to do and how to make sure that your kids get the best nutrition they can. And you know what?
Pass this knowledge on. You might not be a mom, but you might have friends that are having babies and you hear them crying all the time when you're over visiting or you're talking to them on the phone and the mom's like, she just has colic or the baby has colic, and you listen to that and just say, look, I heard this amazing podcast. The mom owns a probiotic company. Her baby had quote unquote colic too, but it was actually a deeper issue and it was solved by really healing the gut. Especially friends, 30-40% of babies are C-sections, so they don't have the proper gut bacteria. So listen to this. It will come in handy at all different stages of life, from when your friends have babies to when you have babies. And knowledge is power. So pass it forward.
Yep. Enjoy this episode. We're going to take a little break and come back on the flip side. See you guys there.
Bye. This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophie Superfoods. The Philosophie offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophie Fix All That with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophie Superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com. Awesome. Well, we're so excited.
Yeah, so excited to have you here today. Ashley, you are Lovebug, right? Can I just say it like that? You are Lovebug?
No, my kids are Lovebug. I'm the co-founder with my husband and CEO. But our kids are Lovebugs and all sort of the community of our family who take Lovebug. Those are Lovebugs too.
I love it. And I want to get a lot into the health and wellness part of this for sure. But I think everybody needs to hear the story of why this even became a thing for you. Because, there are a lot of wellness products. The idea of probiotics has been around now for the last 5 to 10 years, pretty predominantly. But for you and your family, there's more meaning to why probiotics are so important, especially for children.
Yeah, so Lovebug, of course, is a term of affection. It's the name of our company, but it relates to the bugs in our guts, because bugs are your bacteria, your microbiome. None of this I knew. 6 years ago, I was a first-time mom and got pregnant. And like all first-time moms, you kind of go out and do your homework, try to learn as much as you can, talk to other moms. And so, over the course of the 9 months, I did a prenatal class. And in that prenatal class, I heard that, if you have a baby via C-section, it's not exposed to mom's bacteria on the way out through the birth canal, just exposed first to the sort of bacteria in the hospital room. And so my birth plan was, have a natural birth as much as I possibly can, unless there's an emergency.
Sure.
What I didn't know anything about was something called Group B strep. So all pregnant women are tested at 36 weeks for Group B strep. And, my doctor, I live in New York City, so my doctor said, we've just got the results for your Group B strep. It came back positive, but don't worry, we just handle it on the day. And at that point, I was so pregnant, so overwhelmed with information, I didn't kind of pursue what that meant, or didn't ask. And so he said, it's no big deal, really sort of brushed it off. And so with my son, our firstborn, he was 2 weeks late. So I was like 10 months pregnant, right?
You were over it at that point.
Yeah, I was so over it. I got to the hospital. So much is going on. And what it means if you're Group B strep positive is that they give you an IV of antibiotics when you arrive at the hospital up until after the baby's born. And so for me and for a lot of first-time moms, you're there a lot longer through the process. So it was 26 hours from arrival to his birth. And that whole time, all those antibiotics are there to sort of kill off the Group B strep, but it also kills off all the good bacteria that, you're meant to pass on to seed baby's gut.
Yeah.
Again, none of this I knew. All I knew was I had pushed out like a 9.5-pound baby. Yeah, I know. And I wanted to get, home and back in my own space and all this stuff. And so I get home, he's healthy, born healthy, big baby. And it turns out that he's just constantly crying. And as a first time mom, you don't know, okay, well, what's normal? And then our friends would come over and they'd be like, this is really bad colic. And he would get bloated tummies after every feeding, and I'm breastfeeding constantly, and it's not helping. And he's getting all these bloated tummies. And then, you can tell he's really in distress. And then when he was about 3 months old, he started to develop eczema. And he got eczema over his whole body. And, you're not sleeping, right? Baby's crying all the time. You're constantly researching. I read all this stuff about eczema, that it's so common in babies. But I wasn't really figuring out or finding anywhere why it was so common. And, so I made the appointment to the pediatrician, and kind of in that little bit of time while you're waiting to go see the pediatrician, I noticed that I had eczema on my leg. And I'd never had eczema my whole life. And there I am thinking, well, wait a minute, eczema is not contagious. Why would we both be getting it at the same time? So, went to my pediatrician and said, what's going on here? And he said, oh, here's a prescription for a steroid cream. You'll be fine. He'll be fine. Off you go. And I said, yeah, no. But why do we both have this? And he said, here's your prescription. Off you go. And, of course, that's not an answer. And I wasn't about to go get a steroid cream on my, start to give my baby without kind of getting answers. And I found amazing doctors that practice functional medicine, integrative medicine. They tested everything with me, my full medical history, did tons of tests, and they came back and said I had a severe gut dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is just another word for imbalance. So when you don't have enough of the good bugs, bad things move in, kind of that power vacuum, like Candida. I had quite badly. It's an overgrowth of yeast. It feeds on sugar, really hard to get rid of. I had leaky gut. And they said, start taking probiotics and also give them to your baby, because they knew about the group B sweat during birth and his eczema and his colic. And so I went home, I did all these things, and rapidly, within a matter of just 3 weeks, his body that was covered in eczema completely transformed and was perfect. But more important than that, the physical external, was his colic stopped. He started sleeping through the night. And instantly I realized that he was crying so much because he was, and, colic is such a throwaway term that people use all the time. Like, oh, it's colic. But like, there's crying, and a mom knows, and then there's crying. And this was that different kind. And we shouldn't just be saying, it's colic and dismiss it. We really need to become much more in tune with, our babies, our bodies, ourselves, that kind of stuff. And so here I was, this mom at home that had seen this massive transformation in my baby and then in myself, because my eczema cleared up, but then I felt better quickly than I'd felt even before I got pregnant. And so I wanted to understand why. And I did all this research, and the more and more I learned, I went through these phases kind of, wow, this is fascinating, to, wow, this is really actually quite horrifying, because it's 25% of moms, and they've only been doing this since 2002, right? So it's 25% of moms that get the antibiotics for group B strep during labor. A third of babies are C-section. So you're looking at almost half of babies don't get their gut and their microbiome seeded from mom. And there's huge consequences to this, lifelong, right? And when you don't start to give them the right defenses, which starts teaching their immune system, it means that they get sick more often. And so, and that will result in more prescriptions of antibiotics, which only compounds the problem. And so there were a lot of like really late nights of like a lot of research, diving really deep into this. That kind of horror sort of moved to the passion. And I quickly turned to, I've got to do something about it. And it's really about educating moms, because I thought I'd done my research. I thought I knew things. I had no idea. And this is, this tiny window that we get that is going to have such a lifelong impact. So that was the genesis of Lovebug.
I love it. It's so amazing, especially in these moments of stress when there's so much to absorb. A lot of us, we just believe the people in front of us who tell us what is the best practice.
I know. And it's scary too, because it's actually the first generation of children that are supposed to live shorter lives than their parents. And, we've seen life expectancy go down the last few years. And I think it needs to be a much bigger wake-up call, because for so long and we all do this, easily take the advice that we hear from the nearest source. And oftentimes that's the pediatrician or the doctor. And there are amazing doctors out there, but there are also doctors out there that are not informed, right? Yeah. They are not taught nutrition. I mean,
absolutely.
It's an average, I think it's something like a lot of doctors only get 4 hours of nutrition. And Hippocrates, who's the father of medicine, and we like to talk about him at Lovebug a lot, because he said 2,500 years ago, food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food. Yeah. He also said, all disease begins in the gut, right? And so if here doctors are taking the Hippocratic oath, but not getting educated, any education in nutrition, like what's going on here? And food is information. Like food goes into your body, it impacts your gut bacteria, it impacts everything, right? Your mood. And really people aren't looking at, well, let's go upstream here. Let's figure out where are the causes, what's going on. And moms really, I'm a mom, and this is how I got to it. A lot of the team members at Lovebug are moms. A lot of the people that we talk to every day, and moms are giving their products to our babies. But moms are the ones on the front lines, right? With sick babies. Like our kids are all getting allergies. Their kids are all getting all these, issues. And yet, doctors really just so many times or too often are just handing you a prescription and off you go.
Well, I think, this is such a good fit. So this month, our focus is we're calling framily, right? Friends and family. And this is such an important conversation to have because, we talk about parenting every once in a while, but this goes even beyond parenting because one of the things that ends up happening, right, is this thing, the microbiome, the bugs, as you call them, right? It's so funny, right? We were taught for so long, you should be all afraid of bugs, not realizing that we're covered in them. They're inside us. They're everywhere. You can't see them and you're probably pretty happy about that. But without bugs on you, you'd be dead. I mean, you wouldn't be able to digest your food. There's so many things that we wouldn't be able to do. And so there's our microbiome, but there's the macrobiome, right? The people around us and the bacteria that's available for transfer. And you're talking about mother to child transfer, but within a family. Mm-hmm. And if we don't start taking care of that, that's where we can actually get global or at least massive societal issues like you're talking about around, our friends and our family and people around us start suffering as well because there isn't the usual transfer that would happen.
I know. It is incredible. So starting from ourselves and then moving outward, like we are ecosystems, and you don't think about it. You think you're a human body, and you are, but 99% of the DNA you're carrying around right now is bacterial DNA, right? 1% is human DNA because the thousands and thousands of bacteria all have their own DNA. And that is communicating all the time with your DNA and turning things on that, lead to inflammation, can lead to much more serious stuff. So we think of ourselves in so many ways isolated, but you are so connected to your bacteria and it's impacting your mood, your health. But then similarly, within families in a bacterial sense, people are healthier, and there's amazing studies where if they have a dog at home or a pet, that's bringing in bacteria into the home that, if you live in a sanitized urban environment, you wouldn't get. So these are just the health benefits. And then similarly in your community, like you said, I mean, the people in your family which I love that term, but the people that you surround yourselves with, that impacts your health, not just your mental health, your physical health in such an incredible way. And Sophie, you do this all the time, and I love it because you're not constantly, I like you talk to, but looking at the people you surround yourself with and keeping the people around you that really, help you grow and give you, energy and all this great stuff rather than, toxic things or toxic people that drain from you. And I think that's something that if more people did, if we all learned to do a lot better, we would be healthier ourselves. I mean, they say, you're the average, this is not true, but I've heard you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? You're the average of who you're surrounding yourselves with. And the healthier, those people are in terms of your relationship with them and all that stuff, the healthier you become and you can grow.
Yeah, it's a direct correlation. I mean, you can even look at it in very physical, aesthetic ways. Like, in the last 6 months, who have you hung out with and who do you spend time with? Are you eating more similar foods? Are you wearing more similar clothes? Like, we invite people over to Shabbat and then they'll be wearing like the same tank top that I wear every day. And they're like, oh yeah, like you love this one, right? And like, it's not even necessarily always things that you acknowledge or know. Like the way you speak becomes a little bit different by the people that you spend your time with. So what about the things that you don't see? What about the stress that you're experiencing? What about the things going on in your head and your heart, the thoughts that you're thinking? These are all habits. Like, Adi and I try and be really healthy examples for each other and help each other to grow and expand. And then we have each other's backs and like the people we spend our time with, like, oh, that doesn't seem very like a good vibration for you to be like spending time with him because he's doing X, Y, and Z. Or she seems like a great example for you because I've noticed that you've changed in this way, these ways. And having those check-ins with ourselves is so important. And then having the people that are closest to you to help you check in and make sure that you're being held accountable for your actions in the world and how you're showing up. Like when we should make changes, and that relates to the people we spend time with.
Absolutely. No, I love that.
You mentioned, we talked a lot about sort of the developmental part, but one of the things we share a lot with the people around us is actual food. And one of the things a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't know this at all, honestly, didn't think about it at all. I don't know that I knew to even think about it. Before I met Sophie, was the level of processed food that we ingest and the impact that has on exactly the thing we talk about. So, I mentioned, bacteria being all over us. One of the first people to discover that in food, and he was called crazy for it at the time, was, Louis Pasteur, who invented the pasteurization process. And that was a huge advance in the food industry, because at that time, milk would survive like 24 to 48 hours because we didn't have refrigerators. The bacteria that was in our food would make it go bad really quickly. This is why your food goes bad if you just put it on the counter and say goodbye for 48 hours. And so they pasteurized the food, which is that, flash heat process of killing all the bacteria. Really great. At the time when we couldn't have other means of maintaining our food, because look, we don't all have access to brand new fresh food every 24 to 48 hours. Meat obviously struggles incredibly if you just leave it out because of bacteria. But we have this thing now, and it's pretty much in all of our homes, and it's called a refrigerator. And it wasn't available back then, but it is now. And it greatly slows down because of the temperature, the growth of bacteria. And yet, because of the convenience of all the processing,
right?
Because now milk, really highly processed milk, can sit in your fridge for like 3 weeks. We like it. We like the convenience. I can go to the store, I can buy a whole bunch of milk, and only 3 weeks later do I have to go get it again. Or canned food. Sophie and I talk about this all the time. A lot of the food that you buy, if you think about it, can sit on a shelf for months or years. And if you stop for a minute and you just think about the fact that, like, how natural is that food at all? How is that not just like a mummy of food at this point? Because any normal food, without being loaded up with, chemicals to essentially eliminate bacterial growth so that it can't go bad, any normal food needs to go bad. It should go bad. That's part of the process of like organic material. And we've gotten so used to the convenience that we think, and I think we do this a lot also with the healthcare system, right?
Right.
We would much rather err on the side of convenience than on doing that heavier duty lifting and saying, okay, what will be actually good for me long term?
Yeah, what's more beneficial now that we have updates? We have refrigerators, we have freezers, we have the ability to have fresh meat and keep it in the freezer. We can get fish a month in advance and keep it in the freezer. That doesn't mean we need to buy things that are so heavily, just added toxins and things to help it be shelf stable. And I mean, it's kind of crazy. You can go into, other than like a Whole Foods, but into a normal grocery store, and you go to even get like hamburger meat. There's all these things added to it now. Like, it's not just beef. It's so
is
crazy.
There even beef in some of them? I know.
It doesn't have to be that way anymore. It doesn't make any sense, which, we live in a bubble. I definitely live in a bubble, and I'm so grateful for my bubble in terms of health and wellness. And there's a lot of people that don't have that accessibility. And I definitely want to speak to that as well. Just, there's some people that don't have farmers markets on the corner by their house every single week. And that we understand, and we want to be compassionate for that. But there are other ways, like getting flash frozen vegetables and fruit is another option. Most high-end like Targets and Walmarts, they have flash frozen organic fruits and vegetables available year round. And I think that is helping with the issue and allowing there to be more accessibility to people that maybe don't have that year-round, farmers market access.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's, if you step back and look at where things really shifted in a big way, especially in our country, because in our country also too, we were one of the first to have a huge obesity problem, diabetes skyrockets, and then our sort of diet we exported around the world with fast food and convenience. And we were the first big country doing massive refrigerators. And if you look in the last century, we've got a ton of people coming from different countries all over the world that have these very rich traditions of preserving foods through the winter, through the seasons. And when you're making and salting foods and preserving meats and making kombucha and all this stuff, that food is still alive, right? And the bacteria is keeping it alive. So you're bringing in bacteria to your body, and you're not eating foods in the seasons that, you weren't really meant to, right? We're eating all this stuff. It's such a convenient way. So many calories all throughout the year, so much sugar all throughout the year. And sugar feeds the bad bacteria in our guts, right? The candidas and all that stuff. Fiber feeds the good bacteria. And we're not eating the fiber in our diet because when you process, you're taking out all the fiber, you're adding in all this gluten to preserve it, so much sugar to create those sort of dopamine levels to make people addicted to the food, right? And that is just destroying our guts and the bacteria that's meant to keep us healthy. And then if you add on to that, eating these kind of dead foods that are only, shelf stable because of all these added ingredients, but then a lot of them too, again, in the last century, post World War II, we started giving, livestock a lot of antibiotics. In many ways, it's a growth promoter, right? And so the animals would put on more weight quickly, and then they could slaughter them faster and make a lot more money faster. And so we're eating those meats and those conventional meats and foods and getting, that meat that was treated with antibiotics also impacting our guts. So I think... Am
I right that there's been a pretty substantial change around that, though, in the last 5 to 10 years in terms of... Because I know again, this might be our bubble, but I see in a lot of the meat that we buy now where they specifically say antibiotic-free chicken, antibiotic-free cows, etc. And have you noticed, as you've been following this, that the trend has expanded?
The growth in organic foods is massive. You can buy it anywhere now, and that's fantastic, and that's great because it's giving more people access to antibiotic foods or sort of organic foods. There's less. The FDA came in strongly and wants to, reduce the amount of antibiotics that are given to livestock, so that's helpful. But there's still a lot of sort of loopholes that antibiotics can be in the food supply.
Well, essentially, if you say that the animal is sick and needs the antibiotics, it can still get the antibiotics instead of just a regular growth promoter.
Exactly. And, even the CDC has come out and said, antibiotic resistance is a huge problem. And that's coming from, giving so many animals for so long. 80% of the antibiotics in America, there's a great book by Martin Blaser called Missing Microbes. And in it, he talks about how 80% of the antibiotics are given to livestock, and then, we then eat that meat. So the FDA came down and said, we need to reduce this massively. But then you'll see things like, I don't know if you've saw it recently in the last year or so, they're spraying oranges in Florida with antibiotics because there was I know, it's insane, right? There was some kind of fungus or something on these oranges in Florida, and so the EPA has allowed them to start spraying huge, massive amounts of orange growth with antibiotics.
Why an antibiotic for a fungus?
It's I'll look it up exactly, but it's all over the news that they're spraying it on produce. Yeah, and
again, right. The point is, we try to, and again, I think this comes back so much. Sophie and I do a lot of work on relationships. That was what started this podcast. I think the same thing we're talking about here, taking the shortcut, like putting a Band-Aid on the thing that is wrong right in front of you, permeates our society. It's just like we look for the quick fix, and the quick fix is the oranges have shit on them. Spray something to get rid of the shit instead of Let's figure out where it's coming from, why it's there, what we need to do in order to not disturb the entire system within which those oranges are growing. It's like, it's to me almost is a ridiculous like extension of this, but it's almost like, hey, we're fucking up the planet. Let's figure out how to colonize Mars. Like, hold up. There could be a simpler solution here, right? And the same thing happens. I mean, do you remember for the longest time, the hand sanitizer craze that was taking over this freaking country,
I was
and maybe the world was like, the whole idea was sanitize your universe as much as you can. And
it's the opposite.
Well, it's like,
right.
You need to clean your hands, but you better not get to a place where you think that eliminating risk, eliminating the potential for harm is even feasible, and more importantly, maybe that there's not going to be so much collateral damage, so many other unexpected effects from what you're talking about, that you will end up dealing with the outcome of whatever it is you're trying to fix for much, much longer. I mean, even, what I was thinking about the kids when you're talking about like C-sections. My dad was an OBGYN. My sister is now. C-sections at the time were seen, still to some extent in some societies now, are seen as like a great advance, right? Because women weren't dependent on their delivery dates. Like women could go back to work. They could schedule when they wanted to have their baby. Nobody was thinking about microbiomes. Nobody was thinking about the woman's need for rest and bonding with her child. Like none of that stuff entered the equation.
Or the recovery that is necessary after C-section surgery versus just a natural vaginal.
Would you know anything about that?
Yeah. Our first was an emergency C-section, and then I had a VBAC with the other two. But yeah, like no one knew. I mean, we did our best. Yeah, we did our best. But I think the culture of let's just hurry up and schedule these C-sections as a first attack because we're in LA. We have tons of friends that are in different types of industries where the moms are working full time. And so they're like, let's hurry up and schedule our C-section so that I know when I can take off. And that's part of our culture is just hurry up and get it done instead of like letting it happen naturally. And of course there's cases when there's an emergency, but other than that, I mean, that's the go-to in many hospitals now.
Oh, absolutely. I think in my hospital where my son was born, it's like almost 40%. There's a great documentary. I was curious. Did you guys see it? The Business of Being Born with Ricky Lake?
No, it's on my list.
You should. Yeah, I watched that before the first one, and my first son, and yeah, it's amazing. Everybody should watch it before they have a baby because it's a lot of Ricky Lake, more than I ever thought I'd see. But she's great. It's really good.
That's amazing. So I want to move forward a little bit. So this was the idea behind, and this is a lot of the research and the work that you've done. Right. Tell us a little bit about. We talked about this before, and it'll probably honestly go as like little behind the scenes stuff for our VIP group, the discussion we had before we went live. You did this because you saw the effect of microbiome destruction on your own child and the impact that it had on his health, etc. Then, there's a couple of steps between going, hey, giving my child probiotics is good for their health, and going, hey, let's start a company where we produce probiotics for everybody else. Do you mind walking us through some of that thinking for you guys, what that journey has been like? And then what I want to get to the most in the end of all that is that piece we talked about earlier about the impact.
Yeah. So, I guess I would say, don't get in the way of my background is very different. Like in the arts and stuff. And, this experience transformed my life because I guess you'd say like, don't get in the way of a mom with a sick baby. Here I had this very sick baby, getting so dismissed by, the pediatrician and all these other people, and was able to get him well and figured out why. And then I realized that it's happening everywhere. So many other moms have kids that are getting allergies or obesity or diabetes, like these things that are related to their gut health and not getting answers. And I was so, my story was so common, but then became unique when I was able to get him well. And then once I got him well and saw how huge the problem was and other moms and babies were out there suffering, and just the economics of it too, because a lot of these things, as you know, are unnecessary, right? Like with C-sections, some of course are necessary, but many are not, and there's a lot more money to be made with C-sections. And then this is going to impact the rest of this kid's life, right? And similarly with group B strep, they're erring so far on the side of, caution, not looking at the bigger impact, right? And what is this doing? And so, and naivety is a great thing sometimes, because you don't know what it's going to take to be an entrepreneur. But I knew, if I can get my baby well and then help educate other moms who are desperate for answers but not getting them, then I'm just going to keep going. And it was really just putting one foot in front of the other. I was like, I'll figure it out. And what's been amazing is when you're doing, and I didn't know it would be like this, but when you're doing things like this, people are drawn to you that want to help you, that are on the same mission, and that carries you through. And like we were talking about in the beginning, our team was out in California randomly at a restaurant, and at the next table there was a mom and baby, and the baby's waving, and we're having this, waving contest back and forth with the whole Lovebug team. And then the mom asked who we were, and we said, we're Lovebug Probiotics. And she said, oh my God, this is a Lovebug baby. I give it to him every morning. He was so sick, and it changed our lives. I mean, you'll just do anything. Wow. Like, it gives you it's incredible. So, being an entrepreneur, as you guys know, it's so much work. It's so difficult. But when, you have those moments and you're doing it for this reason, I couldn't do anything else in my life but this at this point.
100% agree.
Yeah. So much of it is about the impact. So
I have a random question.
Please.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? I've been giving baby Noah raw milk, and it just feels right to me. In the beginning, I'd give her some of your probiotics along with it, just to make sure that she was getting what she needed. What are your thoughts on raw milk, as long as it's from a good source and legal where you live?
Yeah, I mean, like you, as long as it's from a good source and legal where you live, and you're not doing anything, it's live, right? And this is, again, we've changed so many things with killing off all the bacteria, and there's a lot of advantages. But as long as it's safe and you're doing it in a safe way, then I'm for it. The thing I would say though is, with our probiotics, or a probiotic that you take, the strains that you're adding in, and there's certain strains at certain stages that are important. And so I don't know what strains are in that, so you'd have to look into it. But one thing I will just add with babies' microbiome, if there's moms out there listening, is so it's seeded at birth. But if you have a C-section or the antibiotics like I had, you can give baby probiotics with their expressed milk, with all whatever they're drinking in their food. But then their microbiome is rapidly evolving. And this is like the basis of their immune system. And then by the time they get to age between 3 and 4, it reaches a baseline that's going to be the microbiome that they'll have for the rest of their life, for the most part. So it's this amazing little window. And the body it's fascinating. I mean, Mother Nature knew exactly what she's doing, right? With this, you're seeded from mom, and then those first few years of life, like you've got, my daughter is almost Noah's age, or a little bit older. She's 19 months, and she's trying to put everything in her mouth, right? And sometimes you're horrified because we live in New York, and it's like she's picking up a shoe, and you're like, God, no. But it's this biological urge to bring in the bacteria from your environment. And that environment used to be probably like the farms, and it was all this great, sort of live around cows and milk and all this stuff. And then now today it's, the bottom of a shoe, and you're like, no, God. But that's this window, and then the microbiome stabilizes, and then that's kind of the basis of what they'll carry on through adulthood.
So I guess my question is there any danger if you're getting it from a good source? Like back in the day, our parents fed their babies raw milk all the time. Like once they turn 12 months and they're off formula or the breast, or whenever they need to add in a little bit more, is there any concern for the fact that that's not what our bodies are used to? Is there any concern because a baby's microbiome isn't fully built? I mean, she was a natural vaginal birth and had breast milk until she still has breast milk every morning, but this is more of something we're doing to supplement. Wondering just as someone who's an expert in the in the microbiome, do you think that there's any concern in feeding her that versus, like, to me, it seems that it would make more sense to do that than pasteurized milk because you're getting good positive bugs. We still add in your probiotics, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think with all things, I kind of administer, well, what makes sense and how was it done a long time ago, right? And just like you, that's how it was done a long time ago. And as long as, you're following the chain of, where it came from and, it comes to you in the way it's supposed to, then I think that's what makes the most sense. I mean, with my daughter Hunter, similarly, I breastfed her all the way and never introduced pasteurized cow's milk. So now we give her all different kinds of stuff, like almond milk, but never went that route,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because back in those days, the kids would have been living around the same cows, sharing a microbiome already. The difference is now you're nowhere near these cows. So as you mentioned before, Ashley, like you don't really know what bacteria those cows have on the farm where they're at. So it's...
Well, I wanted to just shout out, we get it from a farm in Fresno. So if you're in California, it is legal in California to have raw milk. They sell this in stores. It's organic pastures dairy. And I've actually been on a few panels with him, the owner. It's all just raw cheese, milk, cream. And I think it's the best company. Yeah. And they sell it like our Sprouts and Whole Foods. Like they're just here. And I remember when it was illegal to have these things. So it's
places would get raided for selling.
We had like
milk.
Underground raw milk places in Santa Monica, and they get raided and found out. And now it's legal again. So
that's fantastic.
Let me give them a shout out. Their cheese is the best, and their butter too. We use their butter every single day.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
No doubt. I think it's so great to have so many different stakeholders promoting this concept because, it's hard. I feel it's almost like vegetarianism or veganism were really, really difficult to pursue. And I'm not fully vegan, but like it was really hard to be a vegan 50 years ago because
we're heavily plant-based. Yeah.
Because there were no commercially available products to support that. Now people have many more options. And I think it's the same thing around the microbiome, right? Like, I work with this company because there's a lot of connection between your mental health and microbiome. And people don't think about that. We're talking about digestive health, but your mental health is hugely, hugely controlled by opiate receptors and serotonin receptors in your gut. And if you don't take care of that, then we wonder why people get more depressed and more anxiety, et cetera. So
just to that point, because your listeners might be interested to know. So 95% of your serotonin is actually made in your gut. Yep. So if you have an unhealthy gut, you're not even producing the serotonin. And then, what happens in your gut, there's this nerve called the vagus nerve that goes, straight to your brain. Like huge impact on mood comes from your gut.
Mood, energy, some things like blood pressure and things like that as well. But huge impact. And again, that's something that nobody's talked about. There are behavioral environmental reasons for mental health struggles, but then there are also biological ones. And it's like, yeah. So, I work with this company called Amare that does like what you guys do, I think, but for the mental health side of things. And it's so great that people are starting to talk about that. We went, Mark Hyman, we talked with, when we saw him at Revitalize years ago, like there's so much more conversation about this. And like you said, I would argue probably the vast majority of moms who are in the process of getting pregnant, especially with their first child, you're trying to do research, but you don't even know who to listen to half the time because there's so much information out there for you, right? What kind of formula to use? I mean, you're constantly chasing information. And so I think it's so great that you not only did your own research and understood what's going on, but then took it upon yourself to help other moms find much simpler solutions than the alternative, which was, again, because of reduced access to some of these foods, especially in specific areas in the country and the world, the ability to have Lovebug where they can just add it. Like we just add it to the milk, to the bottle sometimes.
Yeah.
Like
when we were traveling in Israel, I was like, I bet it's going to be hard for her to eat the food. And, you know, we brought our own formula from home because I wasn't really sure how she would react to the milk. And I knew I couldn't get raw milk there. I still breastfeed, but for those bottles in between, we just brought our own formula. But even then, like the water is different. Like everything's different to her little gut. So we brought your little packets and it made such a difference. She was fine. She never had any issues. No issues.
Yeah, it was so cool. So that's my way of saying thank you so much for doing the work that you do to help mom.
No, thank you guys. You guys are a huge inspiration to us as well. I mean, we love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we end every one of these interviews with 5 questions we ask.
Okay,
everyone.
cool.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the number 1 question is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
You're going to think it's on brand, and I don't mean it at all that way, but it's from my mom. And it's to really go with your gut. I know, but
I love it.
And somebody asked me this again recently, like you get so much stress, and people are, like you said, people don't know where to go to get information because there is so much on the internet. And, but that's a great thing, because if this had happened to me, my situation before the internet, what would I have done? Like I wouldn't have been able to get the information and dig and dig and dig. Right. And so, but because there's so much, I think just stepping back for a minute and looking at, well, what really makes sense for my family? What really makes sense here is, it doesn't make sense to take this, steroid and give it to my very young baby when let's figure out what's underlying. So really, there's so much noise out there. Take a step back and really trust your gut, trust your the way you see it and your logic, and that will get you through. It's gotten me so far through it.
I love it.
I think it's also just so important. We talk about intuition a lot. I eat intuitively. I live my life intuitively. And it is just your natural inner compass. And your true north is within you. And you can always find that. But the only way to find it is to take a risk and to believe it and find it and trust it, and then continue to hone that and follow it and trust it and continue that process. It's the only way to find your true north and find your direction and find where you're supposed to go and how you're supposed to eat and who you're supposed to be in relationships with. Your body will tell you, it wants to tell you, but we get so clouded with stress and anxiety and other people's opinions and social media. And, it can be so hard when you let all these other opinions and thoughts in. But when you clear all that away and just come back to your gut and to that natural reaction, it's actually easier.
1,000%. I couldn't agree more. And what's amazing when you start doing that and you start taking those risks and you see the results, it becomes like a positive feedback loop. Exactly. And you're like, oh my God, like this is what happens when I do it, and you become better at it. And it's amazing.
Absolutely. Following up on best advice, what is your proudest moment to date?
Whoa, my proudest moment. Oh gosh. That's so funny. You don't think about you think about your kids, right? And you don't think about yourselves. I'm incredibly proud that I've gotten Lovebug to where it is today, right? That I'm literally, I have no background in entrepreneurship. My husband has the MBA. He's the one who said, oh my God, it's so risky. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, nope, I don't care. I'm not listening. I'm going to go ahead and do this. And, we keep winning awards. Like we're growing rapidly, and, it's amazing and hard to believe, but no, it's not, because I give a shit so much. I'm only doing this because of our mission that we're on. So I'm incredibly proud that I've been able to do that. But if it feels weird to say, but yeah, I am.
Love it. I love it.
We love that. What about your most challenging or difficult moment to date?
My most challenging moment. This year has been incredibly challenging. It's been my most challenging. I lost my mom back in February.
Sorry.
And no, thanks. And I'll talk about it in a biological sense. it was very fast. She got pancreatic cancer and died very quickly. And as soon as she passed away, all of a sudden my immune system collapsed and I got pneumonia. I had collapsed. Not all because, and you don't realize, just how impactful this stuff is. I mean, it was the most challenging thing. And I've been working so hard the last 4 or 5 years on Lovebug and hadn't, been spending as much time with her. And that's been incredibly challenging to me because we were talking about it in the beginning. You want to say yes to everything. You want to do everything. And you have to make choices, right? And, she was close. I would see her every week, but still I'm like, my God, you want those times. And it's such a challenge to be getting to this point and not be able to share it with her because she guided me so much and taught me so much. And I want her to, be able to share it going forward.
She's watching you.
Yeah.
With you every step of the way.
Yeah. Thanks. And apparently she was the inspiration for what you're doing right now because she told you to trust your gut.
Yeah.
That's right. Don't listen to anybody else. Trust your gut. Yeah.
So, I mean, you probably have listened to our podcast. We're very much, and same on our social media, we're always sharing our self-care practices because it's what grounds us and gives us the frequency, the ability. It fills up our cup so that we can fully give to our clients, our businesses, our children, our lives, to each other. But unless you have these self-care practices to fill up your own cup, it's really hard to serve others and be a businesswoman. What are your self-care practices? Anything that you're doing now that really resonates and fills you up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of when you're a mom too, and whatever you're doing, you have to make time for yourself. Otherwise, you're no use to anybody else or yourself. And so I have so many demands on my time, but I make sure that I look after myself. Right. And so one of the self-care things that's helped enormously is we got a Peloton recently. And so it makes life so much easier getting that workout in every day or every other day. Right. I like to cook at home for my kids as much as possible, but then it's tough sometimes. And so we have in New York this amazing company. I think it's in other cities as well, called Sakara. Yeah. And it's a plant-based. They're fantastic. I mean, the food is organic, gluten-free, plant-based, and it's delivered, whenever you want, but every week in so many meals. That's enormously helpful because you're eating the healthiest food and you feel so good. I'm so energized after that to attack whatever I need to attack. And then taking time for myself. Like I've got 2 kids, but I will make sure that I get away for a little, weekend every once in a while, or take one child at a time. I'll take one and then my husband will take one. So we're developing those kind of independent relationships, but really giving myself mental space and then sometimes physical space so that I'm energized. That it helps enormously.
That's great.
It's crazy. Just even you don't think how impactful some of these self-care practices are. And yes, you can do something big, but even just sometimes I just need 5 minutes. Like if I'm in total kid mode and it's been hours and I'm on my own and I have other things, putting my phone away and just letting the kids watch something for a few minutes and then the baby going down. The minute the baby's eyes are closed, I can breathe again because it's just so much pressure. Yeah. And we create it in our own bodies, but it's almost impossible not to feel those pressures, to just do everything right, to be present for them. And then, there's work stuff coming. The minute that I feel alone, or even my older Kai will watch Noah and I'll be like, can you just take her for 5 minutes to her room so I can just pee? I just need to pee.
I know.
Alone without her on my lap. And it really does just give you that there I am, a reminder of who you are and where you are so that you can come back and enter your life with more presence.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll be in the shower and my kids will come in with questions and need something. I'm like, you're going to get wet. They don't care. Yeah, no, it's so vital to do that and to find yourself again and give yourself that break and take away all the, so much is it's about balance and it's about I don't know who's balanced or who you're always making these choices and take away that pressure on yourself. Lifting that helps so much because then you're not your own worst enemy here. You whatever you're doing is amazing and it's great, and no pressure on yourself.
100%.
Yeah.
Totally. Thank you for that. So the last question is this. The podcast is called Ignited. What gets you ignited in life?
Got it. We're going back to the same story. Seeing the impact we're having on the world is amazing. So that like fires me up for work. And then with my kids, seeing them interact with each other. So my daughter I don't know if Noah's talking it, she will in a hot minute, and then it's like so fast. So she started saying her brother's name, but she's got a lot of saliva in her mouth. Hush it. And oh my God, it's the sweetest, greatest thing. So yeah, I
amazing.
do that all day. My kids.
I'm crying right now. Just been thinking about that. Like they say she says something now. It sounds like brother, and so we're just making it up. That's
exactly that's brother.
I just totally it for everything, but it's like brother and the sweetest. Her love for them. She now reaches for them, where before she only wanted to like go to me or Abba. Now she reaches for Kai and Leo, and it's the cutest thing because they're little bodies like her. She's like the same weight as them all.
Yeah. I know.
It's the best. These little beings that we created, with the person we love, and then to see them earthside, and then to see your first love, your first baby with your second. It's
unreal, isn't it? Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. It's my favorite.
Well, thank you so much. An honor to know you in this way. I love your products. We actually, just in case anyone's listening that already has done our cleanses or is into the Philosophie Superfood line, we do sell Lovebug Probiotics on our website now. You can buy it a la carte, or you can get it in the 14-day cleanse. It's included now. So that's a really cool perk. We just love her products so much that we wanted to up-level the cleanse programs. And I take them every day, and so do my kids. Highly recommend.
Absolutely. And as we talked about in the intro, we even have a special code for you guys. So thank you for that, Ashley.
Of course.
Thanks again. Thanks for all the work you do. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you next week for some more amazing Framily guests.
You guys are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.